Councilman Jefferson, and then Kyle, designee for Councilman Lehman, are all here, so we can get started. Could I entertain a motion for the approval of the October special meeting minutes?
So move.
I'll second.
Second.
Any discussions, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so moved. All right, so a couple things on the agenda today. We'll get started with a review of the updated org chart. I hope you all have had a chance to take a look at it. I think it was more so, based on our discussions previously around some of the, just making sure we have clarity on the different roles and responsibilities. And I think the goal today is to recommend that the council review this as well after we've reviewed it. And make
Through you, Chairwoman, was that, I don't see that in the meeting invite.
it's in there. It's called, it's like the last attachment, SEC FY23 org chart. Well,
I'm not seeing it.
A PDF.
January, could you just forward the document over to the committee members, please?
I am doing that right now.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just looking in the invite and I don't see it in the invite. So if it was sent in a different format, that's not what I was looking at.
Yeah, no, it was, I pulled it from the invite, but that's weird.
I don't.
Did you have anything in your invite?
I do. I have the bylaws,
The minutes?
the agenda, the minutes, and SEC goals. I do not see.
Okay, weird. All right. Oops. I'll give it a minute for you to receive that.
Mhm.
Just sent it.
And I only ask because Deputy Commissioner Robertson and I had talked about an org chart, so I wasn't sure if it's the same one.
Okay.
It is the same one. We were, the only thing we were trying to do with it is to put it in Visio, because I just was only able to do this with like boxes and lines. So it's just a
So
rough.
then that's not the one, because the one that I sent over to him was created in PowerPoint.
Oh, I did not receive that.
I still don't have, I don't know if you sent it. I still don't, it's still not showing up in my inbox. Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you. I'm ready when you are, Chairwoman.
Okay, great. Is this what you have, is this similar to what you have drafted and or reviewed or discussed, or is this something different?
This is something different. And I'm assuming that Deputy Commissioner Robertson has not had an opportunity to talk with Director Clay about it.
And was, Junior, was he on this meeting invite?
He is not feeling well today. He is out of office. And he and I were supposed to meet and discuss, have a meeting, our weekly meeting, and we were putting it off till today, and he is out of office today.
I'm not sure if it makes sense for us to discuss this, if there's another one in play. I would entertain thoughts on that from committee members.
I would like to table it until they've had an opportunity to discuss the chart.
Okay. Are there
I don't know if that
any,
requires a motion.
I don't think it requires a motion. I just, are there any sort of high-level questions, comments, concerns that we want to make sure January takes back with her in her discussion with Deputy Commissioner?
Let me
I'm-
just pull this back up so I can see if there's.
I think
I'm
Councilman
a
Jefferson.
little unclear. Can someone help me with understanding what's the issue here? I know we don't have, are there two separate org charts? I saw one. So tell me what's happening, someone.
So when we last discussed through you, Madam Chair, when we last discussed the org chart and there was, and this is particularly from an OPM perspective, they really wanted to better understand how the different roles kind of fit, and then also to think about it more broadly, and this was what Deputy Commissioner Robertson and I talked about, was how this would fit within the broader strategy of our overall goals. So I had shared this with him and he said he was going to have a conversation with Director Clay, but as she mentioned, he is out sick today, so that conversation may not have happened. I think, and just rather than us make this recommendation and then it ends up getting changed again, I'd rather that they align on the two documents and make sure that it makes sense, right? So for instance, there's program managers, they've got the document that you all have has a program manager, and then there's a program manager for the lottery. There were questions about the logic behind the associate accountant reporting to the program manager. There was also a question about where if there should be a program manager for like licensee support and then a program manager for reinvestment, as opposed to what's in the other chart. I'm trying to like go back and forth. So
So
that's
basically, I
that.
think what I'm hearing is some of the questions that we had addressed in our last discussion on this org chart were beginning to be addressed in this updated org chart that we, as a governance committee, have not yet seen because it is still under review, and Director Clay and Deputy Commissioner Robertson needs to connect on it, finalize it, and then present it to us.
Okay, I get all of that, and thank you both, through you, Madam Chair, explaining that. How did it get on the agenda? I don't understand.
I was not aware there was a secondary item, so when I requested this, this was a document that was sent to me, so I assumed this was the most up to date.
Okay, so will we get a copy of that? And just moving forward, Madam Chair, through you, what's the timetable for the full council to review this and to adopt it?
I mean, so what I would say is that the adoption should happen sooner rather than later, just so that the hiring can continue. And so it wouldn't be on the November 1st agenda anyway. It will likely not be on the special meeting November agenda because we will have other agenda items to consider, including, I think, the reconsiderations and then some license types that need to be voted on so that we can close out the social equity lottery phase of the work. And so that the general lotteries for those remaining license types can move forward. So I would imagine that unless this committee meets before that special meeting, it would be up for the December meeting when it would be voted on.
I'm just concerned about holding up hiring. I mean,
Yeah.
December, you're not gonna get any hiring done, and then we're in January, you know.
Madam Chair, through you, does it have to hold up hiring?
I mean, I think that the council has to, I think has to vote on, because that's part of our charge in the statute, is to determine what staff support is necessary to carry out the work. So I would say yes.
Especially because there's confusion amongst some of the roles, like, do we actually need them? Should they be different? So if it's gonna be hard to start hiring when you don't have clarity on what you're hiring for.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilman Jefferson.
I'm wondering, yeah, my last question. I just want to know, which org chart should we be reviewing at this point?
So I'm going to circle back with, I will circle back with Deputy Commissioner Robertson and find out, it sounds like he had planned to have this conversation today perhaps, but see if I can get a sense of when he's going to have that conversation. I mean, the document itself is done, but I was reluctant to bring it forth to the council without Director Clay and Deputy Commissioner Robertson sort of agreeing and aligning, excuse me, on the frame.
I think that's fine, and I think we should figure out if we can bring this forward in November. I think that would be much more helpful. So if they can, and I recognize that he is out sick today, and I hope, hopefully he's got a quick recovery. But if we could get an update offline on how quickly they can have that conversation and turn it around so that we can discuss this and move it forward to the council as quickly as possible, I think that's pretty critical. And then just from future agenda items, making sure that he is aware. I'm assuming he saw the agenda and saw that this was on there. So, kind of puts us in a precarious place because we can't really review what we've got, and probably shouldn't review what we have if it's going to change drastically.
Sure.
So for next steps on this one, Councilman Corey, you'll connect with him to confirm when they can have the meeting, discuss it, and be able to reconnect with the governance committee to review. And if we need to, I think we can review over email and maybe schedule a quick, call to sort of approve to push to the rest of the council. My hopes are that they've taken into consideration all the recommendations that we made previously, and so there shouldn't be much discussion needed on it. But again, I would like for this committee to see it before it goes further.
Absolutely.
Is everyone comfortable with that? And I want to acknowledge Councilman Gaddis has joined us while we were in the middle of the discussion.
I'm fine.
Okay, well, we will table the org chart, but the goal is to have the updated final draft for governance committee review. I would hope within the next week if possible.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. All right, then moving on. Next agenda item is the fiscal year 23 goals. And I believe these have now been reviewed by both Chairman Comer as well as Executive Director Clay. These are very high level goals, but I think my question for this council, for this committee is, are there any key items within the goals for fiscal year 23 that we feel like are missing? My, sorry, go ahead. My only, not sure it's a concern, but there's a lot of developing things in terms of goals. And nothing that has a goal of like completion or execution of, or anything of that sort. For example, on the program side, we've got, develop the accelerated timeline, develop the workforce training program. Are there, or in the loan program, are there any expectations we want to set in terms of goals for completion, activation, execution between now and the end of fiscal year 23, so that there is more beyond just sort of laying the groundwork.
Councilman Gaddis has his hand up.
Sorry, Councilman Gaddis, go ahead. I think
You're
you're
on
still
mute.
muted.
I have a
Double mute situation. You're good now.
I have a- I'm on a DOL Zoom and I was off of mute. All these little Zooms and Teams are confusing. You should see my little it's crazy. But my whole thing with the goals is as long as we could quantify them. Fluffy goals are great, qualitative goals are great, but we can't manage what we can't measure. And if we're going to hold people accountable, we need to be able to do that. So whatever goals we do have, we should be able to have a matrix right next to it, if possible, if that makes sense.
I don't disagree on that one. Put your hand up.
Kyle does.
Sorry, my team's being weird, so it's not popping up right away. Go ahead.
That's all right. And just to your original point, I think it would be helpful there was like a timeline associated with most of these. When should we have an org chart approved by, right? Because we just had that conversation and it sounds like we need it before January. So it would be helpful in this document, there was deadlines or, certain based on, need.
Yeah. Director Clay, is this something where you can take it back? I mean, I think the goals on a high level make sense, but we'd like to see sort of affiliated deadlines with each goal. It doesn't have to be an exact date, but it could be by March 2023, et cetera. And then I think also the measurable components of it too, right? So it's not just developing the accelerated timeline. I think, the office is still responsible to ensure that, whatever it is, X number of provisional license holders have completed the program by whatever that date we expect or those things. So I think breaking it down so that we have clarity on when to expect things, and we as a full council can refer back to this and say, okay, we should have done XYZ by now. It hasn't happened. What's the holdup? Or hey, we've done this ahead of time. Great. What do we do next?
Correct. So I will definitely go back and update it, just so you'll know the accelerator program we're finishing up the contract this week, which means the administrative schedule will be set, and I can update the accelerator program with those goals and milestones. So you'll know
Right.
what needs to be done by what time.
I think, and again, we don't need the detail of every goal and milestone of the accelerator program. I think the high level is important. And I would say that for pretty much every program, right? So for the loan program, not just, when do we want to have the timeline done? What are our expectations for launching the loan program? Is it January 23? Is it March? So on and so forth. I think understanding those things will be helpful. Same thing on the legislative and communication side, when do we plan to have a lot of these things done? Is there, in terms of like maintaining legislative relations, do we have sort of something in mind right now? Like we want to make sure we have quarterly checkpoints, or we make sure we have, I know in the beginning we were doing sessions with different either subgroups or committees of the legislature. Do we want to make sure we're planning to have those types of discussions with council members if that's a goal? So I think having a little bit more in terms of like, again, measurable, we know that this thing needs to happen or this number needs to be achieved for us to say, okay, we met our goal, and we can say that this was done well, beyond just sort of the develop phase.
Sure.
So if you can work on that, and I would love to review both this and the org chart at whatever we schedule as our next most likely special meeting, because again, I think we're in fiscal year 23 technically, correct? So I think we need to have this squared away and approved quickly, because sooner rather than later we'll be talking about fiscal year 24. Any other questions on the goals Okay. Moving on, next agenda item is the bylaws. So a couple of months ago, we had a discussion about revisiting our bylaws and making sure that they still stand true, make sense. Are there things that are missing or things that we may need to consider changing or tweaking for better process structure and efficiency?
I think we're, Madam Chair, through you, I think we're safe as long as we have Article 6, which appears, I think, on page 4, if I'm correct, because that gives us flexibility. The review process, 3 years, 2 years, 3, I guess, is a good number. So I think we're fine as we move along. If we have to make adjustments or amendments or even repeal items, I think we have that gives us a tool in which to work with it. So I think we're good.
Okay, great.
It's not agree in total with every aspect of the bylaws. We know that, but
Right.
we do have a mechanism if we choose to use it to do what we have to do.
Yep. Councilman Abercrombie?
I agree. I think these bylaws are great, very helpful to have in place. There was a few like typos. I just think it needs just another proofread, just to clean up a few things. And then I was wondering, in the addendum we include the
Loan
low
committee?
interest loan program. Do we have to include an addendum for the accelerator one, or is it just going forward we need to add them?
Yeah, that was my question. Do we need addendums? I thought we had discussed being able to create ad hoc committees as needed. I'm sure we're going to have a need for others as we go forward. So I'm not convinced that they need to be added in as an addendum.
Madam Chairwoman, unless otherwise stated, we operate under Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure, and those rules do outline a host of tools to create ad hoc committees. So by default, we could create them, dissolve them as we see fit. And that way we're fluid and loose.
Yes, and I think Article 5.2 mentions that as well, that we can create as we deem necessary. So I guess the question is then should we remove the addendum? I think that's really not needed.
I agree. I don't think we need the addendum on page 8. It looks like another piece of the addendum is section 8. Is that also an addendum to the original? Committee's purpose and statement of tasks. Like I think, in short, I think we could probably get rid of both addendums. I don't think we need to outline the standing committees because we have the authority to create and abolish standing committees, just like we do with ad hoc committees. So,
yeah, I would recommend that we as a council have that information in terms of the purpose statement and tasks. But I'm not sure if that should live in the bylaws. I think we can just have that as part of our, hey, we have these committees, here are the purpose statements and tasks of these committees, and once they're dissolved, if need be, then we don't have them anymore.
I have additional questions, but do we want to settle kind of this addendum question first? Do we have to vote on that?
I think maybe what we can do is get a it's tough, I think, because what we'll want to do is make a motion to recommend the bylaws for approval to the council with what the changes that we discuss. So either we can discuss those now and then put the motion on the table, or put the motion on the table, have the discussion, amend the motion, and then approve.
Madam Chair, I think we should do the latter. Let's make the
Okay.
motion and then go from there.
All right, so do I have a motion on the table?
So move.
Second.
All right, so discussion. So we've discussed removing the 2 addendums.
Yep.
Any further questions on the addendums of in section 8 and then the addendum at the end of the document?
Do you want me to just list kind of a couple typos I found? Would that be helpful?
Sure.
So in section 5.3, there appears to be a period missing after executive director. In section, well, we're eliminating 8.3, so you don't have to worry about that. But 9.12, I believe council should be in quotation marks.
Great.
And then I just had a question about 6. I think there's other stuff in there that, so I just would recommend someone do another
Do a
review.
spell
But,
check, yeah.
but 6.4, I noticed that it says an annual independent audit of council's finances. Is that, and this is very truly a question, I'm ignorant on this one. Is that the state auditors? Is that what that's referencing to? Or are we actually going to have an audit, hire someone and do an independent audit of our finances? I'm just curious where that came from. I don't see it anywhere else in the bylaws and what the intention is there.
Director Clay, or if it was Attorney Matravy who drafted this.
It was Attorney Matravy.
Through you, Madam Chair, Councilmember Kyle, to answer your question, we put that provision there to give the council the ability to decide which auditor it wants to choose. If the council wants to use state entity, the council could do so. If the council decides to go independent, completely outside of the state, the council could also. It's basically to just give some flexibility to the council at that point.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that interpretation. I like the idea of giving us additional powers to do that. I do see it says in like the first sentence, the council shall adopt by resolution and implement policies regarding, and then it goes on to, so it seems like it requires us to do it, an annual independent audit of council finances. So I just want to state, make sure that we're aware that that's in here and that we're planning on performing an audit, or we could remove it. I don't know what the council's preference is.
I had sort of interpreted as we can adopt a policy regarding an annual independent audit. Doesn't mean we have to do it. We could say we want to do it a certain way. Attorney Matravy, is that correct in interpretation?
That is correct interpretation. And to further simplify that, we could just remove the term shall by may. That way the council clearly has the wiggle room to decide, the discretion to decide whether they want to do it a particular year or not. That way it's not like a hard obligation on the council, if that's what the committee would like to recommend.
I'm comfortable with changing that to a may, so that we're just giving ourselves the authority to do these things and not binding ourselves. I do think audits are good, and I appreciate what the state auditors do, but that's just my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Carr.
Thank you.
And then I believe it was Councilman Gaddis and then Councilman Comer.
My mama raised me right, so I'm going to yield to our esteemed chairwoman.
Well, thank you so much, Councilman Gaddis. So I guess what I'm wondering about is our ability as a state entity to choose to hire an independent auditor. thought we had to go through the state auditors. And I'm also wondering about this just because I know that now that the state contracting and standards boards has the ability to like staff up. Two things. I want to be mindful of how we're using resources, but then also I want to make sure that we are following proper procedure in terms of selecting an independent auditor. I just don't know if we have the authority to make that decision.
Chairwoman Comer, we do not. And that
Thank
was going to
you.
be my weigh in. We have a whole audit team that audit state agencies. If there is malfeasance, they may require an independent auditor. Look at the Port Authority. They're being dragged for a lot of reasons. And at the end of the day, we haven't had an independent audit of that. So we need to be mindful that there's protocols in place. And if there were a situation where something was questionable, maybe we get a second set of eyes. But I doubt very highly as this thing progresses, folks would allow us to just go get an independent auditor. You don't want state agencies or sub-state agencies to go off willy-nilly and start doing their own thing. So I think that you could leave it there, but I think you'll get a letter telling you can't do that.
Thank you.
Might I suggest that we take out the word independent, remove the word independent, make sure we have annual audits so that we are aware that that is something that's happening? Does that
I
make
agree
sense?
with that. I agree with that change. I'm sorry,
I-
Councilman.
I'm sorry, yeah. I think my understanding, there will always be a state auditor going to be auditing the council. My understanding of this section was to enable or allow the council to seek an independent audit. And if based off this conversation, we don't feel that that's possible or perhaps legal or even necessary, given that there's already a state audit, maybe we should just remove that section altogether. Unless we plan on creating some sort of bylaw that stipulates how the council and council staff will react to annual audits by the state auditors. But otherwise, I don't know if it's necessary.
So am I hearing we should remove it altogether?
Yes, Chairwoman. And also, when DECD goes through their state audit, which they do all the time, and those reports get released to the legislature, the SEC situation will be captured in that cascade.
Additional items within the document.
And this is
no-
just something that I wanted to flag. I know that, and hopefully we will never come to this point, but I was made aware that because of the language in the statute, where it says we have the ability to appoint, it is only to appoint in terms of SEC leadership. So how that, and again, I'm not suggesting anything at all. But it was flagged for me as in terms of what a process might look like should, in the event there would ever need to be a change in leadership, that the statute is silent on how that would happen.
In terms of appointment of officers of the council?
No, in terms of the staff and the leadership of the council.
Ah, interesting.
And we don't have to address it. It was just something that was brought to my attention and suggested that I bring forth to the governance committee.
I mean, it does have, the council may thereafter appoint an executive director and such other employees as may be necessary. Do we feel that that may cover us? That?
I do not, I actually would, we do have an attorney who is a member of the committee, so.
Yes,
an
yes,
attorney on
and
it.
through you, Madam Chair, I would like to get some time to take some time to look into this particular issue further and come back and advise the committee appropriately regarding whether what authority the committee has regarding appointment and dismissal of senior leadership of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Matridi.
And we can always come back and again, addendum that if needed down the road. Only other question, I know we've discussed this in previous governance meetings around attendance. So we as a council do not actually have the ability to appoint or discharge council members. I believe only the appointing authority can do that. And so just want to understand where the 50%, if they're not attending 50% of all meetings, then they will have been deemed to have resigned from the council. Is that acceptable since it's saying that's a sort of automatic resignation?
Councilwoman, Madam Chairwoman, I got to tell you that we're starting to see that language being introduced throughout the legislative session for every task force committee, because one of the issues that the legislative office of management, particularly the library there, who keeps tracks of the commissions, the task forces, et cetera, is participation and quorum. And a lot of the language and the statutes that form these commissions and boards were kind of silent on how the body is able to deal with folks who don't participate. So now we're getting this kind of boilerplate language that's being inserted everywhere. So what I'm saying is I don't know if we should just let that happen. I think it's a good thing. That way, if you have council members who don't show up for any reason, we have a tool to just, hey, you resigned yourself.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with having that in there. I just want to make sure we're not overstepping our sort of legislative rights.
No, it's in the statute. They just put it in May.
They just added it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, then we're good.
And like I said, it's going in for everyone.
Yeah.
I like it.
Further items of discussion on the bylaws.
I had a silly question. Article 2.1, powers and number. What does number stand for? The amount of members on the council?
Yes, that's what it is, basically. And we simply said there that we simply pointed to the statute, which has already determined how many members could sit on this council is 15.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Council Member.
So just a clarifying question, do we need to have number in there since the actual number of council members is not stated in there and just refers to the statute?
It's all up to the committee to make the recommendation. We put it there when we were drafting, just to further emphasize that.
That's where you can find that information, I guess, in terms of section.
Yeah, that's where you could find that information.
Okay.
Further questions, comments, discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
we have an outstanding issue, and I don't know how we reconcile that moving forward, since we have a motion on the table about on the floor regarding moving this to the full council. We have our attorney who has to provide us with some guidance on the issue raised by Madam Chair. So, do you have any suggestions on how we reconcile that?
My suggestion on, or at least my thought process on that is, we make the recommendation to have the bylaws be put in place with the sort of edits that we've discussed today. But either Attorney McCravy provides us an update prior to the council adopting this, or we add that on as a addendum. Now we can wait until we have that before pushing this forward to the council. If we feel strongly that that should be part of the bylaws, before bringing to the council, but I think we've got sort of three different options on the table. Thoughts from other council members? Holly,
would
I don't know
rather-
if you-
Yeah, I would recommend we just wait until we have it all buttoned up because I don't know that there's a time crunch with this one in particular. These bylaws, they've been out since what, July, so I don't think another month will hurt us here.
Councilman Gaddis?
I agree with Kyle. I think to the extent that we could wait to make sure we get the best information available to make a good decision, we should wait. We don't hurt anyone waiting, and we'll come across tighter too.
Then is it appropriate for me to withdraw the motion?
Yes, I believe that makes sense.
All right, so I withdraw my motion.
Okay, I sent the changes that we've discussed in the chat. So Attorney Matravy, if you can make sure that those updates are made in the bylaws, as well as just kind of a run through and scan of making sure, you know, grammar, punctuation, all that is in place as Councilmember Abercrombie had mentioned. And then we will wait to review it again after you have also done the kind of investigation that you need to do in how to best frame sort of appointment questions that had come up. And then we'll review it again at the next governance committee meeting.
Sure, I will take care of that, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Director Clay, if I may just request, I know the minutes get sent out. I think we've had a couple of action items and requests for you and the staff coming out of each of these agenda items. So if you can just sort of have those recapped and sent to the council so that we know what to expect to review or touch base on at the next one, that would be great.
Will do.
That is everything on our agenda. We don't have any recommendations to make to the full council since we are tabling most of the items. Are there any further questions on any of the agenda items or pertaining to governance discussions from today?
Madam Chairwoman, good meeting. I'm enjoying our meetings as of late. I think we're turning the corner, becoming more efficient, and I'm digging it. Thank you. And with that, I move to adjourn, Madam Chairwoman.
Just, I just want to address one question that Director Clay has.
So this committee meets the fourth Wednesday, which is very close to the council meeting. So we are going to be proposing that this committee meets a little earlier in the month, because it's only usually the last Wednesday is only 3 days or 4 days prior, business days prior to the council meeting. And so if we needed to take care of something prior to the meeting, we don't give ourselves a lot of time to handle that and to get back to you. So
I
Crystal is
appreciate
gonna,
that. I
Crystal will
believe the
send out a
recommendation was for the third Wednesday of the month instead of the fourth.
okay, so I wasn't sure if the doodle poll went out or the information went out, so just wanted to give you that heads up.
Yeah, I think that should be fine so long as we don't start that until January 1st, so that
Correct.
folks have enough runway to get that on their calendars. Unless committee members have any concerns with shifting from the fourth to the third Wednesday of the month.
I just want to be clear on Madam Chair, because I use my calendar religiously as everyone else does, and I want to make sure what we're saying here. So how are we finishing out this year?
So this year we will finish out, we will most likely have a special meeting of the governance committee to be scheduled. And then our next scheduled governance committee meeting is actually for November 23rd, which is the day before Thanksgiving. So that may need to change depending on availability of the council members. I will myself most likely be in transit that day. And then the last meeting is on the 28th. Which again, we can decide if that makes sense or not. So my recommendation is keep the standing meetings to the fourth Wednesday of the month through the end of the year, and then starting January, it would be the third Wednesday of the month.
All right, so are we gonna do something? We're gonna leave the meeting in December for the 28th, and we might change the meeting on November 23rd. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's correct. And if there
Okay.
are concerns with with the December 28th meeting as well, since it is close to the holidays,
Yeah.
we can also discuss shifting that.
And even discuss if there's a need to meet, so.
Correct.
um,
I don't want to
okay.
take it off the table just yet because
Okay,
plenty can pop up with between now and then.
okay, I'm good.
Okay, so I think we're good as a committee for the, starting January, moving into the third Wednesdays of the month, same time slot.
No problem.
Okay, with that, believe we have a motion on the table.
Second.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.